Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is so nice to see you, metaphorically speaking. Oh, there you are. Okay, you're in the chat box. Great. Okay, so as you're coming in, go ahead and tell me what your name is, where you're coming from in the world. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to get into the live room. So I would love if you could tell me where you're coming from, if you can see and hear me okay. If you can see the screen, it should say how to easily protect your photography business without the expensive legal fees. Okay, so I can see Brittany from Canada. I see Kaylee from London. I love it. I see so many of you. I'm just going to give it a minute or two. Okay, Becky from California. Nice. I have family in California. I love it out there. We've got Janine from Kansas. We've got Mike from London. A lot of people from London. Oh my gosh, okay. We got Liz from New Zealand. Great. This is so fantastic. I think we're going to hit capacity, which is honestly just completely insane. Because we're just a couple minutes in. Cassidy, this is amazing. And I know everyone is in a different time zone. So good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are. Okay. So I have this amazing web training for you right now that is 100% a high energy webinar. If you are here to learn about how to protect your business, your photography business with the legal side of things, but without the expensive legal fees, then you are in the right place. So here's the thing. I just want to set some ground rules. Yes, I still see you. People are coming in. Okay. But what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute, turn Facebook off, get out of all of the different web tabs that you've got going on. I know if you're like me, you're trying to do 100 different things at once, so you've got like a lot of different tabs open. Go ahead and shut those down, shut Facebook down, definitely turn off Netflix for sure. Because this is a really high energy, a high impact training for you. So many people have gone through it and they have really been learning about the best ways to protect their photography business. And I am so fired up. I'm so energetic and excited to see you here. I just want to make sure that I have 100% of your attention because we have a ton of amazing information for you today. Okay, so does that sound good? All right. My mission today, if you choose to accept it, basically is I want to help 100 photographers protect their business today. And my question to you is, do you want to be one of those photographers? Let me see in the chat box. Okay, we got Liz, we got Simon. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yes, that's why you're here. Yes, exactly. Okay, so this webinar is all about creating a successful legal foundation for your photography business so you can really sleep easily at night without the panic of worrying if you're going to wake up to a lawsuit or have clients really take advantage of you because you don't have the legal structures in place, right? So we really want to make sure that you are protected with all the right legal documents and procedures in place. Now, what makes this webinar different, what makes this training different, because I want you to have this kind of fundamental understanding of how it's different, right? So I really want to let you in on the legal side of running a photography business, to see behind the scenes of the law, because, so many classes that teach you about starting your own business or teach you about how to get into photography, whether it's online or starting your own kind of brick and mortar business. And, all of these different webinar gurus, they kind of tell you about the positive sides, right? Like getting to 6 figures or scaling, maybe scaling to 7 figures, how to get clients, how to do the marketing. They tell you all of that stuff, but they don't really tell you about the legal side of things. So you can get those amazing results and then it's like, okay, well, what do I do if I have a bad client? Like, how do I protect myself? How do I make sure that I get paid? Like, what if I get a client and they just end up bailing after I've sent them the pictures? Like, what do I do then? And so this is really going to help set you up with the legal side of starting or having your own photography business, the kind of legal foundations that you really want to have in place. Okay, So this training for you is if you already have a photography business or you want to have a photography business and you're really looking to learn about the legal side of things a little bit more to get it in place if you already have a business. But this also works for complete beginners. If you are just starting your photography career and you want to make sure that you have the legal side in place before you get started, this is for you. It's also for you if you are a seasoned photographer, but you just want to learn more about the legal aspects that you need to have in place. Like, for instance, I was just looking up FemForce here in Denver, which is absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for them. They have these brand photo sessions that I'm so excited. I'm really excited to go work with them and have them do some photos for me so I can get some great brand photos. I'm really excited about it. So now also, if you stay till the end, I'm going to make sure I'm going to be giving you something absolutely incredible, okay? Something that is so amazing. So I definitely want you to stay to the end because I really, really, really want to set you up for success. And what I have to offer for you is basically a fast track, okay? So give me a yes if that is you, if this training is for you. Yes, yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Wow. All right. Okay. Yes. That is a lot of yeses. Okay. So this training is not for you. Basically, if you simply have photography as one of your hobbies, maybe you just love taking photos of your local area, maybe like taking pictures of your friends or your family, but you don't necessarily sell your services, you don't really sell your photos, then this is not for you, okay? And if you're not really willing to put in the work to really implement the things that you're learning here today, then this is also not for you, right? Like if you're just coming to listen, then that's fine. But you also need to be willing to implement it, right? Because just learning about it doesn't necessarily protect you. You have to implement it. And, I know all of you are top performers, obviously. Like, if you're willing to take the time to learn about the legal structures, you all are obviously willing to put it in place. You're willing to do the work. You're willing to be successful. I know that about you. That's our audience. And I am so excited for you guys. So we are going to get straight into it because I really want to make sure that this training is aligned with you. And so that you know the best practices when it comes to the legal side. So just to introduce myself a little bit more, my name's Marissa. I am a 32-year-old entrepreneur, and I am the co-founder of a company called Entrepreneur Contracts that I started with my brother Steve, and I'm going to tell you about that in a little bit. So this is me. This is me and my dog Wyatt. He's basically the reason why I do these things, because I just want him to have a great life, right? He is so cute and so sweet. Okay. Anyway, so this is my brother Steve. He is the attorney behind Entrepreneur Contracts, and he is actually normally on these trainings with me, but he has some very exciting news, some very exciting new additions in his life. So this is little Leo. Steve recently became a dad. Leo was born at the end of May, and so he is such a little delight. I just love him so much. Isn't he so cute? I just adore him. I'm so excited to be an aunt. And so Steve is really focusing on taking care of Leo and taking care of his wife. So, he's kind of learning how to deal with a newborn, definitely going through a lot of sleepless nights. It's his first son, so he's just kind of learning, first child, and so he's learning all the newborn tips and tricks, like how to get them to sleep, how to get them through feedings. He's really helping his wife stay comfortable, and they're just getting used to this beautiful life that has come into the world, little Leo. I'm so excited. But yeah, okay, so Steve is the lawyer behind Entrepreneur Contracts. So let me just tell you a little bit about our backstory and why we decided to start this company. So back in 2015, I had just graduated from my second master's degree. Yes, I have two. I have one in education and one in literature. That's why I love doing these things, right? Like I love teaching. I love learning. And So, but I did kind of realize that I didn't want to teach in the traditional route. And I love writing. I love to write fiction, and I'm actually a published poet. But I didn't necessarily want to bank on poetry for my paycheck. So I decided to become a copywriter and enter the freelancing world. I became a copywriter in 2015. I started helping ed tech companies with their marketing, their copywriting, and I was able to become successful pretty quickly. I won a contest with AWAI, which is the American Writers and Artists Institute, and that totally set me up for creating a business, right? Where I was getting booked out. But at the time, I was still working as a legal assistant with a family law firm, which I will teach you about in a little bit. But, I was doing all of these things. I was a copywriter, I was a legal assistant, I was tutoring English. So while I was doing all of those things, I was trying to get my business off the ground. And you guys know, like when you're starting your own business, you're basically bootstrapping, right? Like you're learning how to do all of these different things. You're learning landing pages, sales pages, email marketing, social media marketing, Facebook ads, Google ads, pay-per-click, all of these different things, right? Case studies, testimonials, like it just never ends. And I'm sure you guys can relate because when you're a business owner, you're doing so many different things. You're wearing so many different hats because you're not just the person creating the product, right? Like you're not just taking photographs, but you're the one learning how to book clients. You're the one doing the marketing. You're the one doing the accounting. You're the one making it happen. You're the driving force. You're the engine behind the business. So you're doing project management, client interface, all of this stuff, different stuff, right? And so I took a couple of courses that taught me how to start my own business, how to do marketing. But the problem was that they never went into the legal side, right? Like the options were either to basically go to Google and get a free document or go to an attorney and pay thousands and thousands of dollars, basically even just for a consultation, and still not really feeling clear about what you need to have in place. And, that was a problem for me because I had just graduated. I had a ton of student debt that I needed to pay off. 2 upper level degrees were very expensive. So I knew I needed to pay a lot. I needed to make a lot of money, but man, I did not have the money for an attorney when I was first getting started, right? Like you're bootstrapping, you're taking your income from your other jobs and basically putting it into your business until you can get it off the ground, right? And so basically in 2017, I went full time and I started getting a lot more clients, and I had to have proposals, I had to have contracts, but I basically didn't know how to do that, right? Like I didn't know how to write a contract for my clients. I didn't know if it was going to stand up if, something happened. And so that's a part of our deep purpose here at Entrepreneur Contracts, because we're both really deeply passionate about creating a successful business and having an impact on business owners, especially freelancers, especially photographers. Like as a freelance writer, I worked with a lot of freelance photographers, and I know that you all go through the same thing. You have to have contracts for your clients. You have to have model releases, all of these different things. And there's so much on the legal side that you just don't know, probably because there just aren't the resources out there. And so that is what we wanted to do. We wanted to provide everyone with resources, with the legal knowledge so that they could protect their businesses, right? And we're so deeply passionate about entrepreneurship and the legal side of things. And it really has allowed me to live such a life of freedom. I'm able to travel with my laptop and go to all of these fantastic places, like London, Paris. I went to Amsterdam. I went to Mexico City, Lisbon, all of these different places in Portugal, Switzerland, all of these different places, really. And I was able to do that without the nightmare, basically, without the intense anxiety that comes from kind of not knowing if you're really protected or not. And I really want that for you. Steve and I really want that for you as well, so that you don't have to have that fear. And so that's what we're going to show you today. And so that leads us into entrepreneur contracts. So, we came from a family of attorneys. My dad was an attorney. We basically all worked there at some point. My mom was the accountant. My brother became an attorney as well, which I'm going to tell you about. I was a legal assistant. And so my brother knew that he wanted to go into law after working there basically since 2005, right? So he has a ton of legal experience, like 17 years, which is just insane to me. So he really saw how much attorneys had an impact on people and how much he could really help them. So he decided to go to law school. He ended up going from a bachelor's degree in anthropology, which, he still loves. He's just like me. He's a big learner. He loves learning new things. And he went to Michigan State, go green. He was on the dean's list. He was a part of all of these amazing clubs like Moot Court, all of these different things. He graduated in 2016, and so after that, he started taking over the family law firm. He started joining all of these amazing organizations like the Colorado Trial Lawyers Association. He joined the American Bar Association, Super Lawyers, American Justice Association, all of these things. And, he is so successful. It's so amazing to watch. It's so fun to watch my brother do so well. He has become... In 2019, he was a top 40 under 40 trial lawyer, and now he is one of the top 10 attorneys in 2021, which is just absolutely insane. It's so cool to see him succeed so well. And so the reason why he decided to go into entrepreneurship was he wanted to start essentially like an e-commerce company that was based on, well, he wasn't really sure, like an e-commerce company or a blog based on like outdoor activities that you could do in Colorado. We both live in Colorado. It's so beautiful here. And basically you have to be an outdoor person if you live here, right? Like you're going hiking, you're going skiing, you're going rafting, you're fishing, doing all of these different things. And so he wanted to start this company. He was learning all of the things that I had learned. And that was in 2018. And that was right when all of the GDPR regulations came out. And he was like, oh my gosh, I have to learn where I'm sourcing my, oh my gosh, a deer just ran by my window. That's funny. That's very Colorado for you. Yeah. So he was like, I'm learning all of these different things. And now I have to learn all of this extra law about what the privacy policies are. Like, it's just too crazy. It's too much. So we basically decided to team up, right? So he started learning about all of the different legal aspects of running your own business, having your own website, being an online entrepreneur. And I was telling him, I was like, so many people out here really need help. We really need help with the legal side of things. I have a big network of freelancers, freelance writers, freelance photographers, and other like bloggers, other entrepreneurs. And we were really talking about how much we need a legal resource for online businesses, for entrepreneurs, for freelancers. We really need some help to kind of walk us through it, right? And so, he started researching and started learning all about the GDPR, started learning about what you have to do, what you have to have in place as a business owner. And so together we decided to start Entrepreneur Contracts to really help the freelancers and entrepreneurs protect their businesses, right? And so we wanted to make the legal thing simple and understandable. So it's not just this big force, right? It's not this big scary wilderness of the law, right? Where you don't really know anything and you're just kind of wandering in there without a lot of knowledge. Because we really wanted to set up entrepreneurs and freelancers. We wanted to set up photographers for success. We want you to be successful. We want you to have the law on your side so you're not just fighting against these big kind of, like giant corporations and entities without a little knowledge in your back pocket, a little more knowledge, a little more protection on your side. Whew. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, I did not want to have to go through 3 years of my life, spend $100,000 and a law just to get a law degree so I can start my business legally, right? And so, I really want you to understand that, we've both done, well, I did so many things wrong when I first got started out legally, right? Because, I was signing these contracts, like one of my first clients had me sign an NDA that basically said I couldn't mention that I had worked with them. And so I couldn't use the materials that I had written for them in my other marketing, in my other campaigns to get more clients. And it was so frustrating because I didn't have that social proof and I couldn't say that I had worked with them. So it was so frustrating. It gave me absolutely horrible anxiety, right? And I know so many of you have really experienced that as well, like really horrible anxiety where you're just worried that things aren't going to work out. And that's how the first year like really felt for me before Steve and I started this. It was so horrible. And so again, I just want you to know that's why we're here. That's why we're putting this training on today, because I never want people to have to go through that where you're basically getting sick because you're staying up, you're getting insomnia from all of this anxiety about the legal sides of things, not knowing if a former client is going to like come back at you, or like they're not going to end up paying the rest of their fee, or they're going to, contest or like, speak about your materials that you really wanted to protect, or they're going to ask for a lot more and then basically not want to pay for it, right? And so I really understand. Steve and I both really understand how to get success now. So how to get success for myself, how to get success for my clients, for my customers, for them to really create success for their own clients. So it's really about protecting you so you're protected and your clients are protected. Everybody's protected. That's what I call a win-win-win scenario, right? So these are the things that apply regardless of where you are, right? Like these are the laws, even though they kind of vary individually, state by state and place by place, like these are the fundamentals, the things that you really need to have in place no matter where you are. If you're in California, New Zealand, Australia, I know there were a lot of people in London. So if you're in Europe, South America, all of these different places, these are the fundamentals. And we all want to have a business that's really aligned with us, that really works with us and doesn't have us working for it, right? Where we get to have the lifestyle that we love and it's not overcomplicated. It's not, worrying about whether you're going to be having a lawsuit that's going to end up costing you $90,000 or $100,000 or more, God forbid, where it's so stressful at night because you're just not sure if it's going to work out for you. And, we really wanted to remove that anxiety and fear for you. And that's why we're putting on this training, why we have our business in the first place, because we want to provide that resource. So you don't have to spend, $100,000 or 3 years to go to law school or have to go to an attorney and pay these big giant legal fees, right? So before we do that, I do want to get started with a quick disclaimer and say that I am not an attorney. This is not a client-attorney relationship with me or with Steven Paysinger. Obviously, I'm not an attorney. I'm the marketing side. And this also doesn't establish a client-attorney relationship with my brother Steve. So nothing in this training is really an offer to represent you. And it's basically for information and educational purposes only. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's get moving into some things very quickly that you need to have, right? These legal structures that you really need to have in place. And I just want to show you that it's really simple. It's not really that convoluted or crazy thing that you kind of have in your mind. You just have to have a couple of easy documents in place. But I just wanted to do a quick check-in because now more than ever, it is so important. So, the past year has been absolutely insane, right? Like 2020 was crazy. And creating your own freedom, creating your own financial security, it's so important. It's more important now than it has ever been before, especially having that positive impact on the world that you photographers have, right? Like you're showing the world, using your lens, using your point of view to show the world about beauty, about the moments of life, right? These big memories, these big weddings, these basically these turning points, these moments of life that are so important to protect, whether you're a brand photographer or wedding photographer, it doesn't matter. We really want to love and celebrate you, help help you all be protected. You know, even if you're an equine photographer, I absolutely love that because I was an equestrian. I have been an equestrian since I was about 5 years old. So I always loved getting those pictures when I would go to horse shows. And that's why it's so important. It's so important to protect your photography because you're the ones who continuously show and remind us how beautiful life is, right? And I want you to know you are in the right place at the right time because we want to address that elephant in the room, right? Like the economy is crazy and it's so important. It's more important than ever to really protect your business, to protect your income, especially in this wild time that we're living in. You know, you don't want to have to go back to a desk job because you didn't have the proper legal structures in place, and then, you know, client took you to court and sued you, and you know that cost could end up putting you out of business, which would just be awful. And you know, we would lose so much if that happened. And that's a big reason why we wanted to run this training for you. I know how impactful it can be for you. Okay, so I know now more than ever you're probably worried about this, and it's okay to feel like that. I'm not going to be on this webinar here and say that like everything's okay. This is a new normal, right? And basically, I just really want to address that. And how many of you feel like that? Okay, yeah. Lori's saying yes. Bruce is saying yes. Yeah. And Chris is saying yes. Amazing. Kaylee saying yes. This is so phenomenal. Okay, so let's get into some of the 3 secrets. So the first one is that there's no such thing as a free lunch legally. The second one is ignorantia juris non excusa. Yes, I am asking you to pull out your Latin, your high school Latin, but we'll go into what that means. And then secret number 3 is that there is a way to limit your liability with a few things, okay? Okay, so secret number 1 is that there is no such thing as a free lunch when it comes to legal contracts and the legal side of business. And by that, I mean, I personally know that it is very, very tempting to research contracts, right? To go to Google, type in freelance writer contracts. That's what I would do. Or for you guys, you would be doing like photographer contracts and basically go to the first or second page and basically try to find a free template that you can just print off and send to your clients. Now, honestly, this is one of the most dangerous things that you can do. And trust me, I know. I was actually talking to another attorney today. I met her at the dog park. You know, you meet all kinds of people at the dog park. I was explaining what we do. And she was talking about how she specializes in helping landlords and renters deal with their contracts and their lease agreements. And so she was speaking with a lot of renters who had been kind of reviewing their lease agreements during the pandemic. They were really worried about what would happen if they were late on their rent, what would happen if they lost their job, and if they had no way to go get another job, what the plan was with evictions. And when she was looking at these contracts, she realized how many landlords had done just that. Right? They went to Google, they found a lease agreement for free, and she saw that these contracts were missing so many different clauses that she actually couldn't believe that the renters actually signed these agreements, these contracts. And one of the clauses that was often missing was an act of God clause, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, but it basically became really relevant over the past year during the pandemic. And that's when a contract is done right, it talks about what happens when there are things that are unavoidable or unexpected, like a pandemic, or what happens if you get ill. And so she kept telling me how these landlords had done the same thing. They went to Google and they typed in renter's agreement in their state and they found a lease agreement and they basically just printed it off and sent it to their tenants. And there were so many things that were missing from these contracts. And she basically deals with it all the time. And it's really interesting because it's the same for photographers and really for pretty much anyone who's looking for a contract, right? Like if you go to Google and you look up a contract, there are going to be certain things that are missing or some extra things that that you really don't necessarily want, depending on what you're doing and what your niche is. And that's the biggest problem with these free contracts on Google. They do not necessarily protect you, right? And so I want to show you a little video. This is one of the contracts that Steve found on the first page of Google, a photographer's agreement. And so you think it's okay. There's like payment methods, there's taxes, there's severability, stuff like that. So Steve found this and reviewed, and he wanted me to use it for an example, right? Because there are so many things that can be missing from these contracts. And you would look at this, you would see like, oh, it's 4 pages. It's probably super extensive. It's totally going to cover everything that I need. I'm just going to print it off, send it to my client, and bada bing, bada boom, I'm going to be ready to roll. But that is not actually true. And one of the other problems is that you don't even know who wrote it, right? Like, you don't know if a licensed attorney wrote it. It's just someone put this up on Google, says it's a photographer's contract, and you're kind of putting your business at risk based on this contract, right? And so it might not seem bad. You're like, yeah, it's 4 pages. It's got everything I need. It's got some of the necessary clauses, like it's got services provided, independent contractor status, stuff like that. Those are definitely all things that you want to have in your contract. But what you might not be aware of if you're not really paying attention to all of those extra clauses, there are some things that can be really potentially damaging, and they might even cause you to be liable or responsible, or that can cause the contract to be terminated. So, for example, this is pulled, I did a clip from that contract that I just showed you. And so take, for example, in section 14 here, this is a drugs and alcohol section, which you would think like typically wouldn't be a big deal, right? So it says, photographer agrees that the presence of alcohol and drugs are prohibited on the worksite and while performing their services. If the photographer or any of their agents, employees, or subcontractors are determined to be present with alcohol or drugs in their possession, this agreement shall terminate immediately. Now, generally speaking, you're like, well, yeah, of course, I'm not going to have drugs or alcohol on the worksite, but what if you are a wedding photographer, for example, and while you're eating dinner, you decide to have a small glass of champagne or even just a sip of champagne to toast the couple. But it really goes beyond that, right? Because that statement says that if alcohol is present on the work site, then the contract can be terminated, which means if you had used this contract when you sign a big wedding project, they could technically terminate the agreement just because there was alcohol present, even if it was at their own wedding. So if you use this contract, all of your hard work would go to waste just because of this one clause. Now, obviously, this wouldn't happen to you all because you are so smart. You would obviously read over the contract before you have a client sign it and would pick up on that. But unfortunately, there are so many people looking for something that they can just put into place right away, right? Like generally when you're looking for a contract on Google, you're like in a rush, right? And unfortunately, it can kind of become like the terms and conditions that are just so easy for us to skim over and click agree without actually knowing what we're agreeing to. And let's be honest here, right? Like how many of us have done that? I know I have done it where, you get a new Apple or Google or Facebook terms and conditions, it pops up and you don't even read it. You just scroll to the bottom and click that you agree. I've definitely done that. I'm seeing in the comments everyone saying that they've done it too, right? I know the majority of us have done that at some point or another, but when you do that, and when you're just skimming over these contracts, like if you're skimming over a free legal contract and you're not really paying attention to the different clauses that are in there, you're essentially signing away your protection. And they are really not comprehensive enough to protect you legally. And if things went by the wayside, which we all know unfortunately sometimes happens, if you had used that contract, one of those free contracts, you could really be setting yourself up for this world of hurt, this world of anxiety, and basically setting yourself up to throw a small fortune in the trash can, maybe even a fortune that would cause your business to go under. And I really know that you don't want that. And I know I'm kind of laughing here with the like throwing a small fortune in the trash can, but the reality is that those free legal documents are not regulated. That means that you don't necessarily know who wrote them, you don't know if they're up to date, you don't know if they're free from errors, and you don't know if they're actually relevant to your photography business or not. Like if you had a wedding photography business and you had used this free contract with the alcohol and drugs clause, you would be in basically a world of hurt, right? And unfortunately, that can leave both you and your business very exposed to very serious and very expensive legal risks. Plus, you don't necessarily know which party it's drafted to protect, right? Just because it says photographer service agreement contract or photographer contract doesn't necessarily mean that it was drafted to protect you, the photographer, right? Like, for example, the one that I just showed you, that one was designed to protect the client rather than the photographer. Now, these are a couple of the sections, the different sections and clauses that you definitely need and want to include in your photography contract, so you know exactly what you need. And of course, we're just going to go over them briefly. We don't have to have time to go into all of them really in depth, but I'll just explain a little bit about each as we go through. So you definitely want to make sure that you have the payment terms and schedule. It's so important to have this written into the contract, not just in an email or a verbal agreement, because those don't necessarily help you if your client defaults on their payment. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen online who send over their packages to their client really expecting their client to be a decent human and pay them on delivery. But for some of them, unfortunately, all of a sudden, sometimes a client will ghost, right? And then they just won't respond to your emails or your calls. Or worse, they come back and say, you didn't provide what was agreed upon in the contract, right? So for example, take a look at these two. These are comments from Avril and Anna. So Avril was saying, I had a client, family. I mean, isn't that the worst when it's friends or family? That's why you always need to have a great contract, even if it's just for friends and family. It really helps reduce that stress. It really takes away any possibility of that bitterness because it's already outlined in the proper format, so you're not fighting over it. So basically, it sounds like her family kept adding work and got all huffy when the prices went up. But because it wasn't in the original invoice, it kind of sounds like she needed another clause, which we'll talk about, like what to do if the contract needed to be changed based on having more work. And how many of you have had that happen? Give me a yes in the comments if you've had a client who wanted extras in your packages after they've already signed the agreement. Okay, Heather is saying, hell yes, that happens all the time. Sam is saying yes, 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 yes. Right. I mean, we've all been there. I've been there as a freelancer. So you're doing great things and then they naturally want more. And sometimes with a bad client, they're just shocked and surprised that you would, actually want to get paid for your services. Okay, so back to Avril. So she was saying, first of all, they didn't pay the upfront deposit, which would have been taken care of if she had had a contract that discussed the payment terms and payment schedule. And then they kind of let it slide because it was family and they couldn't pay 100% of the material either. And so they ended up doing the project for about 50%. They felt super disrespected and naturally they just didn't feel protected. They didn't feel like they had an agreement in place. And that's because they did not have a photographer's contract that was drafted by an attorney who really knew or knows what you need to be protected, right? So that's just for the payment schedule and the payment terms and schedule. So now take a look at Anna. Anna had a client refuse to pay the rest of the invoice because they essentially felt like it didn't go the way they wanted. Like it's so vague. And if you don't have the right language in your contract, it can have you fixing things like editing photos just because they feel like it wasn't done the way they wanted it to be, right? And so like what happens if it's an unnaturally bright day and you can't necessarily edit it down all the way? You need to have clauses in your contract that really protect you for this. I definitely had a client like that where he he kept wanting revisions, and he basically wanted 5 revisions, and I didn't have a clause in my contract that stated how many I would do that was included in the project. And typically for freelance writers, it's 2. And so I was basically doing so many additional revisions for free because I wasn't protected, right? So it's very, very important, unless you want to feel kind of used and abused by your clients, which obviously you don't want, right? Because you never know. Sometimes they start out really wonderful and really great, but then as you start working with them, they start becoming more demanding. And when you have a contract in place that protects you from when they start becoming more demanding, they know exactly what the process is. If they want to add more services, they also have it outlined for them about what they're getting, right? Okay, so that is just a couple of people who kind of ran into problems because they did not have the right contract, right? If they had had a contract that stated the deliverables, stated the payment terms, they would not have run into this problem. And so they also really could have used a cancellation policy, right? If they had wanted to terminate the contract and end the relationship, basically they should have had one that they should have known as soon as someone stopped paying them that they needed to eventually cut off their services, right? They shouldn't have kept delivering things if they weren't getting paid. So that's why you really need to have a cancellation policy. And you also really need to state when the proofs are going to be ready. It can solve so many problems because, especially in these days, right? Like everyone is focused on instant gratification. They think, okay, we did the photo shoot yesterday, and basically I want to have the proofs that are edited within 48 hours. And sometimes that's pretty unreasonable, especially if you have more than one client. You know that the editing process takes longer than 48 hours. And, a lot of photographers won't give their raw files. And so, that you need to state when they're going to be ready. Otherwise, a client could potentially come and say that it's taking too long because it wasn't stated in the contract. So if they don't get them soon enough, there are all of these different kind of things, right? Like why you didn't have the deliverables in the time frame when it wasn't stated. And so it's really important to say whether or not they are also going to be able to edit these photos on their own. That's really especially important in this day and age with all of the editing, all of the Facetunes, all of that stuff. But you also want to discuss, you want to have a clause that talks about the hours, the locations, and the events that you're covering. This is really important for wedding photographers in particular. You need to say if you're going to be shooting like the engagement photos. Okay, and those, you also want to make sure you include like what specific shots you're going for. Like if you are going to be doing the first kiss, obviously you're probably going to do that. First dance, cutting of the cake, them dancing. How long are you going to be staying there? And that's just a couple of the clauses. You also want to go into the copyright terms. So who owns the copyright for the photos? What are the deliverables? What are the rights of the use? What are the proper, in some cases you need to have property or model releases depending on what kind of photographer you are. You also want to make sure that you have a liability release, which essentially comes in handy when something happens that's kind of beyond your control, like, I don't know, a global pandemic, right? Like so many photographers had their bookings canceled because of the pandemic, and if you didn't have a liability release or a limited liability release clause in your contract, you could still be on the hook for it. So it really comes in handy if any unexpected occurrence, like a natural disaster. Obviously, some places are more prone to that, like California is really prone to wildfires. Colorado is super prone to wildfires as well. And so basically, it's when something happens beyond your control. It doesn't have anything to do with religion or God itself. The acts of God is kind of just a term for it. So, but it could also be something like personal illness. What happens if you get sick or hurt? And so what is going to happen? That's what the liability clause covers. Either you find a replacement photographer or provide a full or partial refund. It kind of depends on you. And so the most important part of the liability the limitation of liability is that you definitely want to make sure you include a clause that states that you are not responsible, or that the liability does not exceed the cost of the contract. So essentially, any damages cannot go beyond the price of the contract. Does that make sense? You guys getting this? Okay. So you also want to include extra fees. And again, these are just a couple of the clauses that you want to include in your contract. So it's so important for you to know. But unfortunately, we have a time limit. I can't have this be a 5-hour course, although I don't know if that's something you guys are interested in. Maybe I will do that in the future, have Steve do that when he is not taking care of baby Leo. But okay. Let's go on to secret number 2. Secret number 2 is ignorantia juris non excusa, which means, these attorneys, they love their Latin, right? And basically that means that ignorance is not a defense to the law. You are required to do your due diligence. And basically what that means is that you're responsible for your contract, right? So if you had used the contract that I showed you from page 1 or 2 of Google, and you had your client sign it, you signed it, and then after it caused a lot of problems and you had to take it to court, and you go to the judge and you say, hey, I actually didn't realize that this clause was in here about the alcohol, and I only had 1 sip of champagne while I was at the wedding. Unfortunately, the judge is likely going to say that this contract that you signed here states that there was basically no exemption from not having any alcohol or drugs. And so you are really required to read the contract that you're signing before you send it out to your clients, before you have your clients sign them. So when you do sign it, both parties are agreeing to it. And that's part of the problem if you're pulling from a free contract from Google or from the first page or the second page, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't necessarily help you, right? Because it doesn't have all of the right terms and the right language to really protect you. So let's just talk about a couple of the legal things that are really important for you to understand in terms of the legal side of photography in general, and not just in terms of your contract, although they can relate to your contract as well. But this is just regarding the legal side. So like always, for us creatives, one of the most important things to really understand is the copyright. I know I'm not a photographer, but I definitely deal with some of the same things because, when you're in creative, you're kind of always questioning about who actually owns the work, right? So the first thing you want to get into is the copyright. Now, a lot of clients, unfortunately, walk into it thinking that because they hired you, they paid you, that they have the copyright. But it really depends on the contract. Like, you can sign away your copyrights, you can give it to your client if you want to, but it's also important to have it for you. Now, you probably already know that copyright is essentially a form of legal protection by the federal law for creators, creators of original works, and that includes artistic works. It includes a bunch of other things like dramatic works, literary works, musical works, stuff like that. But so there are some instances when it's not a part of a copyright violation if they use a piece of work. So you'll see these fair use claims all the time about what that means, but essentially that means that a third party is allowed to use a copyrighted work without permission if that work that they are creating, the third party is creating, is for the purpose of a couple of things like news reporting, research, scholarship, teaching, or criticism. But that does not mean that they can use your images on like Instagram or whatever, right? Or on their website. And, coming from like a literature background, for example, if I was going to use a picture in an academic paper, then that would be allowed because it is a critique, right? But there are also laws that are related to the permission of works within the public domain. So you guys probably know this, but there is a big copyright issue with the Eiffel Tower. So because the Eiffel Tower was created or made, I think it was in 1889, so the Eiffel Tower itself is in public domain, meaning most people can use or reproduce the images without violating a copyright. However, the lights on the Eiffel Tower at night are considered an art installation, and since they were created later, it is not considered a part of the public domain. So technically, taking an image of the Eiffel Tower at night without permission is considered a copyright violation. So a piece of work is considered public domain if it contains general information like facts, numbers, stuff like that, if the materials were created by the government, like by the US government, or if it was created before 1923. And so typically the public work in the public domain and materials created before 1989 are also considered public domain if they don't necessarily have the proper copyright notices. This is really important if you are having your photos used commercially, right? So you really want to make it clear in your contract, but also in your business about who owns the copyright of your materials, of the photos and the videos. I know a lot of photographers are also doing videography. So who owns the copyrights to that? Now, some photographers don't mind giving their copyright to their clients. So you definitely don't need to register your copyright. It kind of depends, right? Because under the Federal Copyright Act of 1976, you have a copyright from the moment of creation. But it's also important to remember that whoever owns the copyright has the right to control the reproduction of the work. So whether they can reproduce your photos, and that includes the right to receive payment for that reproduction. And that's why it's so important to really think carefully about whether or not you're giving away those copyrights to your clients or whether you're keeping them for yourself. Because let's say, for example, you did stock photography and you weren't really clear about the copyright laws. So you basically just said like, I don't know, whatever I'll just like click on whatever is here. And so if you're signing away your copyright issues, your copyrights, and you were a stock photographer and you said that anyone who uses it has the right to use it, they could technically upload your photos onto another stock photography site and receive payment. But again, luckily, thanks to the Copyright Act of 1976, you automatically have copyrights for as soon as it's produced, as soon as it's created, unless you're signing them away. So again, if you violate a copyright, this can be very expensive, right? It can be up to $30,000 per work infringed. And that's a lot of money, right? So definitely make sure that it's very clear. Like if you, for example, had signed away your copyrights, you just gave them to your client because you wanted them to be able to reproduce them if they wanted, and you had used those images on your website as a part of your portfolio, you could end up paying some really big fines, like 30 grand per photo. That's insane, right? That's just absolutely insane. Okay, so let's keep moving. So this is just a quick testimonial about someone who had really needed a contract and they really wish they had had them. So my client demanded to have raw files, which I gave her, and she sent me this email with a legal letter threatening to take me to court if I ever claimed to own the copyright or use the photos in any way, claiming that it was work for hire. I tried to compromise by suggesting transferring some of the copyright to her, but she wanted to be credited in the book and the exhibition as a sole artist. And she had a lawyer friend suggest that she let it go to court because there wasn't a contract. But so basically she was saying that she uses contracts now, thankfully. I'm so glad she finally decided to use contracts, because even a simple photography contract can really save you such a world of pain and trouble. Lesson learned, right? Okay, so another important legal aspect that is vital for you to know, because if you violate them, it does not excuse you in the eyes of the law, right? And one of those things is working with kids. So if you're working with kids or infants, basically, you need to make sure you have a signed release form. You need to have it signed by a parent or a legal guardian. Typically, you want to have both parents sign if possible, because, well, you know, with those divorce, things can get really messy. And you know one person will get really upset and it up taking it out on you. So you really want to make sure that you're covered. So you want to also make sure that you have permission to take and use those photographs. You want to discuss how they can use those photographs, right? You will be using them basically in your marketing or as a sample in your portfolio. But you also want to make sure you're discussing the copyrights always. Always have that in your contracts. And you also want to make sure that you have a release of liability and representation. So basically that these children aren't representing themselves, right? So they have a parent or legal guardian signing the contract, because you can't just have a kid model show up on your photo shoot if they don't have a parent or legal guardian present or have signed a release, right? Okay, so we have to get going because we have a lot of material to cover, but this is just another example. So they were saying that they didn't have a contract when they started out, especially for stating how long they kept the raw files for. And they had a client who basically wanted different pictures of the kid, even though they had already presented really quality pictures that exceeded the amount originally promised. Now, she was saying that luckily it didn't come, there was nothing that came out of it, but she definitely added that information into her contracts. Okay, so also you want to understand privacy and publicity laws. So essentially privacy laws address where and when you can take a picture of someone's likeness and who owns the right to their likeness. So a lot of photographers, like I was saying in the copyright section, the photographer often has a copyright of the photo under the Federal Copyright Act of 1976. However, a person also has a right to their likeness. And generally, that means that people have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So on private property, a person can expect that they will not be photographed without their express permission. However, in the public sphere, it kind of changes, right? So in public spaces, the right to privacy is somewhat forfeited. And a lot of photographers who are like paparazzi dealing with celebrities, but it can also be on a smaller scale, right? Like if a likeness is just a picture of a person, and it means like a representation. So whether that's used to promote an idea or a product or a service. So you're taking a picture of your local representative, for example, and let's say someone wanted to use that to promote a product. So that would be a violation of the privacy law. And so that's why it's so important for photographers to be really aware of the photo release and when to use that, right? So if you are using a likeness to promote a product or a service, and you really need to have a release form. So one of the more famous examples recently in the news was the model Emily Ratajkowski. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but essentially what happened was the photographer had taken nude photos or semi-nude photos of her and created a book that they were also selling online, right? And basically a lot of legal action took place between the two parties about who owns the right, because Emily is saying she essentially owns the right to her likeness, that she didn't have a contract that stated he could use it in an artistic book. But he was saying that so she was saying that she had never signed a model release, her agent had never signed a model release for her, and essentially that he wasn't allowed to use those images beyond the magazine that they were originally intended for. But he, the photographer, was essentially claiming that the photo collection is an art book, so it doesn't fall under malicious use. And that's why it's so important to really understand the privacy and publicity laws, because you want to make sure you understand what the rights of use are as a photographer. Like if you're a fine art photographer and you do portraits, you really need to understand this. And kind of along those lines, you also want to make sure that if you are a photographer that does more sensitive photography sessions like nude or boudoir photography, you really want to make sure you're including specialty clauses in your contract, right? So essentially you want to include clauses that state the use of rights that you and the model have to protect you both. You want to state who will be present on set. You also want to make sure that you have clauses that discuss the right or not, depending on, what the model is comfortable with, to adjust clothing or get the pose right, what circumstances would cause the contract to be nullified or canceled, and then, of course, some boilerplate clauses that you'll also want to include if you're a boudoir photographer, like modifications in the waiver, recovery of litigation expenses, no guarantees clause, and limitations on liabilities. Okay, so this is another example. So she was saying that 7 years ago, a really close friend wanted to do some avant-garde kind of editorial style maternity nude shoots in the woods. And because it was a friend, God, how often does this happen where it's friends or family and you think, oh, well, I don't need a contract. And so basically they charged a nominal fee, basically nothing, and the shoot went really well. But then she wanted to use the portraits in an exhibition, and it caused a big problem because there wasn't a contract in place. So are you guys getting this? Are you seeing how important it is to have a contract with every client? Like, even if it's friends, even if it's family, it's so important for you to have. Okay, so then again, specialty clauses, we're just going to go over this really fast. So how many photographers and assistants, deliverables, length of time of the event, how many photos are taken and being delivered, booking fee, due date, what's being photographed. So are you doing specialty moments, right? You definitely want to have a meal clause. How soon are the proofs going to be ready? Cancellation policy. So what happens if the wedding gets canceled like so many times during the pandemic? Are you still going to be able to keep that deposit? You really want to know that, right? How long are you going to keep the raw files for? Stuff like that. So this is an example from a wedding photographer, and a couple of the clients and the wedding parties do, right? They just become like bridezillas, right? And they have these unrealistic expectations about the pictures that they need to get, right? Like, do you have any pictures of my brother's friend's son? It's always something weird like that. And so basically, you need to make sure that you have a clause that states that the photographer will not be held liable for failure to deliver specific individuals, events, or objects, right? Because, man, those wedding photographers, you all deal with so much, And so you really do want to make sure that you include all of these different clauses on there. Okay, so I know that was a lot, right? Like, it's just a ton of information in there. But you also have all of the website legalities, right? So if you have a website, which most of you do, where people go to browse through your portfolio and they want to see your work before they hire you, you still need to have the 3 legal pages in place. Okay, so the 3 legal pages on your website include the privacy policy, the terms and conditions, and a disclaimer. So essentially, the privacy policy is to protect you and the people who visit your website in terms of the data that the website collects, right? So the GDPR is called the General Data Protection Regulation, and the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act. So the GDPR really specializes in EU countries, and the CCPA is in California. So basically, if you get any traffic to your website from any of the EU countries or from California, even if you're not necessarily directing traffic from there, but they happen to show up on your site, you need to ensure that you have legal pages that put you in GDPR and CCPA compliance, even if you're not based in the EU or in California. So, for example, if you're based in the US, but you have a couple of subscribers who are in the EU, like in Paris, then you are subject to the GDPR. So basically what that means is that the privacy policy essentially outlines the rights offered to the website visitors in terms of the data that you're collecting. And basically, all websites are collecting information and data on us, right? So you understand why they have these regulations. So in order to make your website GDPR and CCPA compliant, you have to have these different clauses, and just going over them really quick, you want to have information on the different kinds of personal information you collect, cookies and clause policy, data retention clauses, dispute resolution clauses. And again, these are not exhaustive, right? The privacy law is always changing, and what was acceptable 5 years ago is not accepted today. So you always need to have a privacy policy, a terms and conditions, and a disclaimer on your website. And that is just secret number 2. I know this is crazy. I know this is so much information, but we are going to get into secret number 3 really quick so you can learn how to limit your liability. Okay, let's get into secret number 3. So secret number 3 is that you can limit your liability. So how do you limit your liability, especially if you don't necessarily have an LLC? Because most photographers are independent contractors, so they typically fall under sole proprietors, right? And it doesn't necessarily protect them. So the whole reason why LLCs are a big deal is that it protects you as an individual. So typically that means that you as a business owner are not going to be personally responsible for incurring any debts or liabilities like legal actions from your business. So most business-related lawsuits are not going to come after your personal assets if you have an LLC or a limited liability business structure like an S Corp or a C Corp. But one of the main things you can do to protect yourself is to obtain general liability insurance. If you don't have liability insurance and you do get into a lawsuit, it can cost you your personal assets if you don't have a limited liability company structure. So you definitely want to have liability insurance. That's why, as a sole proprietor, it's really important for you to find the right insurance coverage for you. But again, you can also consider a limited liability business structure. Now, this is more along the lines of the LLC, the S Corp, the C Corp. So the benefit of something like an LLC is that you're not personally on the hook for business liabilities. So the same for S Corp and C Corp. You definitely want to make sure that you're including any disclaimers and disclosures on your website, especially if you do anything like you're selling affiliate products or you're selling things like presets or Lightroom presets or Adobe presets. Honestly, if you're sponsored by anyone, you definitely need to make sure you have disclaimers and disclosures. You really need to state that you are sponsored. And then you also want to make sure that you have limited liability clauses in your contracts. And one of the best ways that will really help you limit your liability as a photographer that's really great is to get into the different clauses of your contract. So you definitely want to talk about what will happen in case of damages. So what happens if you're unable to perform your job? So these are the acts of God that we were talking about, which again, don't have anything to do with religion. It's nothing like that. It's just the things that are kind of beyond your control. So this would be an injury or an illness or something like a natural disaster. But it has to be something like what happened. It could also be something like what happens if your digital files get lost, or what happens if your computer becomes fried. So what to do, how much will it cost if that happens? And this really helps protect you from having to pay the insane amounts of money if you lose a lawsuit. Because again, if you follow what we've been teaching you, what Steve set up, and I'm just telling you, is essentially that you can limit your liability to the cost of the contract. So it would never be more than what they're paying you. Does that make sense? Okay, we got to fly through this because I know this is a ton of information and we're rapidly running out of time. So we still have a lot to cover. So if you take anything away from this web class, it should be that having the proper legal contracts and forms in place isn't just something that you can think about as like an extra, like you're just about to run out the door, meet your client. It's definitely not something you should go to the second page of Google for, like, oh, I don't know, that contract looks good, and not even read it before you have the client sign it. Same thing with the legal pages on your website. You really need to make sure that you have the proper legal contracts and structures in place, and that are purposely created by a licensed attorney that specializes in your niche. And it's honestly just an essential part of being a business owner, right? Having the proper legal contracts and forms in place isn't just a good idea, it's really vital. And you've seen from all of those horror stories that I've been showing you how much trouble it can cause if you don't have them. And at this point, you know why free contracts on Google are not worth it. You know the different clauses that you need to have in your contracts. You know the legal aspects for your website, the 3 legal pages, and you know how to limit your liability. But unfortunately, this brings us to basically a catch-22. You know that those free contracts on Google are not worth it, and you're probably thinking, okay, Marissa, I might know the clauses that I need and why I need them, but I don't really know how to write them. I mean, you're talking really fast here, and I can't write them just based on that, right? And you also know that hiring an attorney is very, very expensive. I mean, sometimes even the consultations are really expensive. Like, for example, one of our family friends, his name is Jim, and he sells different kinds of office equipment. And he sells these really big printers, these really big copiers for corporations, stuff like that. Now, he's a really close family friend, and one day he just wanted some kind of general information about contracts because he was trying to get a big contract for a big corporation that he really wanted to get. He really wanted to sell these copiers to them. And of course, just like all of us, right, he wanted to make sure that he had the right contract, that it had all of the necessary things to make sure it was a perfect situation. It was a win-win for both him and the client. And so basically, he went to a couple of small business attorneys, and guess what they told him? They told him it would be $1,500 just to look at the contract, just to review it. And that's not even including making changes or adding any clauses. So you all know these contracts can end up being very expensive. Sometimes they charge a flat fee, like the $1,500, or sometimes they can charge by the hour. So if it's hourly, it can be between $200 and $500 per hour, depending on where you're located. And if it's by contract, it really depends on the complexity, but it's generally likely upwards of $2,000 or $3,000. So depending on how many contracts you have to sign each year, like how many clients you're getting, that can really add up, right? And that really eats into your profits. So do you think you could be really successful writing a contract like that? If you feel like you're ready to go write your own contract, you feel like this information was all you needed, you just needed a little bit of extra, go ahead and do that. Bravo, I'm sure. But, I'm sure if you're like me, you're like, oh, I'm not really comfortable writing that. But I want you to take a second. How would it feel if you had all of these legal documents in place for your photography business? Would you feel really protected? Would the stress go away when you sign a new contract? I mean, at least in terms of the contract, right? Like I can't take away the stress of selling, at least not here. And for that, it would probably be worth it to you, right? To pay $3,000 to have that certainty, to know that your photography business is protected. But I know some of you are just starting out and you're like, Marissa, I'm living paycheck to paycheck right now. That's kind of beyond the scope of what I can handle. And I totally get that. I've been there for sure. But I just want you to imagine what it would be like to go into that meeting with your new client. You're getting ready to sign a contract that's going to bring in an extra $1,500, $3,000, $5,000. How would it feel to walk into that knowing that you and your business are protected? Probably pretty good, right? Even if you have a nightmare client, you know that you're protected, that you've outlined the quote unquote like rules of engagement, so to speak. And you've outlined what they can expect of you, knowing that if they want anything outside of the agreement that you're protected. You'll probably feel pretty good, right? Probably pretty badass, probably like a pro. And you know that you can avoid all of the horror stories that I've been sharing, that I've been showing you. You won't have to get to that point, right? Now, obviously, contracts aren't a magic wand. They can't change bridezillas into bride geckos. Okay, that was kind of a bad joke. But I like geckos. They're so cute. And I've never been a Godzilla fan. Godzilla just sucked. He was the worst. And, so bridezillas are even worse. So they're going to be bride geckos. But unfortunately, a contract can't do that. But you know that if you have a client that shows their true colors all of a sudden, that you have legal protection. And you're ready, again, if you're ready to go write your own contracts and you feel totally comfortable with the legalese and the different clauses that I've been stating, then bravo, go to it. You can head off now, and I am so excited for you. I can't wait to hear more about your journey. But if you are feeling like that was a lot of information and you don't really want to try and write that by yourself, then I totally understand. And I have a question for you. Because I know we've covered a lot. You're probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all of that information. I know I've been talking really fast, but I really want to inspire you guys. We've gone through a lot of the legalities. We've gone through a lot of the clauses, a lot of the things that you need to be aware of. And I just want to take a minute to really celebrate that because, a lot of people would have dropped off at this point. And I really, really, truly want you all to be successful. Okay, I want you all to be really successful photographers who are doing amazing things in the world. So are you cool if I just spend about 10 or 15 minutes sharing this special offer that I have just for you, amazing photographers? Let me see in the comments. Okay, I'm saying yes. Kaylee is saying yes. Yes, I need it. Take my money. Okay, well, hold on. I gotta show you what we're doing. Okay. So we really wanted to create an offer so you can stop feeling overwhelmed by all the legal stuff. So you don't have to go through all the tears, right? All the stress of not knowing how to write the legalese. Because one of the hardest parts of being an entrepreneur, regardless of what kind of entrepreneur, but especially when you're like a solopreneur, you're just starting out on your own, is that feeling of being alone. And it's especially true when it comes to the legal side of things, right? You're like, I wish that I had some support without having to pay $3,000 for it. Because you want to do it right. I know that. I know because you all are top performers. You know how I know that? Because you're still here. You are willing to take the time out of your busy days where you have all of those tasks that I mentioned before of running your own business, but you're still here. You're still learning. You're trying to put everything into practice. So I know that you all are top performers. You are the successful group. You are going to be successful no matter what happens. But at this point, you're probably wondering, like, how do I do these contracts without hiring an attorney or trying to guess or rewrite the free ones? So if what I've been describing is you, and you don't want to pay the insane legal fees for hiring attorneys to write these contracts for you, then I have a special offer for you. And is it okay if I share it? Because we are really dedicated to helping photographers protect their businesses with the legal side of things. So I want you to jump in the chat box and let me know if you're ready to hear what I've got for you. Okay, Chad is over here saying yes. That's the biggest yes I've seen in my entire life. Jody saying yes, Simon saying yes, Kaylee saying yes, Michelle saying yes. This is incredible. This is so fantastic. I'm so overwhelmed. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited. Okay, so here is what you are going to get when you invest in the Photographer's Legal Bundle. You're going to get everything you need to succeed, okay? You can really think of this as your giant shortcut to protecting your business legally. Remember, you can definitely learn all this stuff on your own. You can learn all about different contracts. You can learn about the different clauses you need. You can learn how to write them. You can learn small business law, learn from some of the best contract attorneys in the country like my brother did. You can go to trials and you can learn how to plead your case. Basically, you can go spend $100,000 or more on a law degree to go figure this out. Or you can take the fastest path to success. So what's in the Photographer's Legal Bundle? Steve has been dedicating so much of his time right before Leo was born, basically up to the day that they went to the hospital, drafting and finalizing the contracts. So you know these legal templates have been created by a licensed attorney. And I never knew that, by the way. I'm not sure if you did, but there is a difference between seeing an attorney who's like, yeah, I have my JD, which is the Juris Doctorate, right? And one who is an Esquire, because Esquire means that they have passed the bar and that they're a licensed attorney. So you're going to get 6 amazing legal templates that were written by a licensed attorney, reviewed by other licensed attorneys for quality, so you can easily customize them to your business. And when I'm talking easy to customize, I'm talking it's so easy that a toddler could probably do it, because gosh, these kids are just getting better and better at technology, right? Like my friend has a 4-year-old, so not quite a toddler, but I'm pretty sure he knows how to use computers and phones and tablets more than me. So if you can type in your business name and address and other relevant information, you can do this. That's how easy it is. They have been designed so you can be up and running in as little time as possible, because we want you protected as soon as possible. So each contract is a Word document that's super easy to customize, like I was saying. Basically, all you have to do is fill out some relevant information in a couple of places, with a few places that require a little bit more detail for customizing it to your particular business, like regarding the copyrights, stuff like that. And those places are all highlighted in green. So it's really easy for you to know what you need to change. You don't have to pore over every word wondering if you need to change it, because again, we want you to be really successful with this. We have done everything possible to reduce your stress, to really take away the headaches and fears when it comes to protecting your business. And don't forget, even though this legal stuff can be really intimidating and scary, when you know that you have a licensed attorney like Steve to save you all that time, all that stress, all that anxiety, and all of that expense of going to an attorney, or all the stress of trying to figure it out on your own, you know that you are protected, right? You know that we've got your back. So the first thing you're going to get when you invest in the Photographer's Legal Bundle is, of course, the photography agreement template. When you invest in the Photographer's Legal Bundle, you will have access to the photography agreement template that you can use for all of your different clients. Okay, this isn't just a one-time use type of contract. So think of it as investing in a contract that you can use over and over again for free. How many of you want a photographer's agreement that you can use over and over again? Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing so many yeses so quickly. Yes. Okay, this includes all of the necessary clauses like the parties, the limitation of liability, copyright usage, work product, deliverables, scheduling, timing and punctuality, rights and duties, expenses, safety and harassment, so you will always be safe, exclusivity, release, payment schedule, and so much more. And this is perfect for so many different kinds of niches of photography, okay? This is perfect for branding photographers, portrait photographers, travel, wildlife, maternity, still life, equine, infant/birth photographers, fine art photographers, pet photographers. Like if you want to come take a picture of Wyatt, use this contract. I'm here for it. I'm ready. Okay, school photographers, senior portrait photographers, family photographers, concert photographers, boudoir, event, and conceptual photographers. Okay. So that first thing that you're going to get is a completely customizable photographer's agreement contract template, and that is a $1,500 value for a total value of $1,500. And this is happening for people just like you every day. You don't have to go through those horror stories that I was sharing earlier, where you're really worried you might get a knock on the door saying that you've been served and that you've got to go to a small claims court, or that a lawsuit has been created against you because you didn't have the groom's brother's wife's nephew or whatever, right? Isn't that amazing? Are you getting all this? Okay, the next thing you are going to get is a completely customizable independent contractor agreement. So when you are finally ready to hire that VA or a second photographer, when you're ready to hire, even if it's not full-time, even if it's for one project, you need to have an independent contractor agreement, basically for the same reasons that you have a photography agreement. You want to make sure that you outline what's expected, what are the deliverables, what are the due dates. So again, this includes all of the different clauses like recitals, schedule of performance, services to be performed, revisions, all of these things, choice of law, arbitration, counterparts, and signatures. And so again, you need to state all of these different things when you're ready to hire a new person. Okay, so this is perfect for when you're ready to hire virtual assistants, photo editors, second photographers, social media managers, personal assistants, photo editors, freelance writers, web designers, SEO specialists. Okay, so the second thing that you're going to get when you invest in the photographer's legal bundle is first you're going to get the photography agreement, which is a $1,500 value. The second thing you're going to get is the independent contractor agreement, which is valued at $1,750. So that is a total value of $3,250. Now, I want you to imagine you are a photography business that is incredibly successful. So you're pumped, you're finally ready to make your first hire. Maybe it will be a second photographer for the wedding. Maybe it's a VA to do some of your marketing. Maybe it's someone who can help edit your photos. And think about the least favorite part of your business and imagine hiring someone to take that off your plate so you don't have to do that anymore. And you feel amazing because you found the perfect person who loves doing what you always struggled to do. They have a great personality that's going to fit right in with you and your team. And all you have to do is get the contract signed. So you don't want to have that internal reaction in your body releasing all the cortisol, all the adrenaline, all those stress hormones just because you don't have a contract ready for them to sign. But when you get the photographer's legal bundle, even if you're not ready to hire someone yet, you know that when you are ready to hire someone, you are going to have the perfect contract that protects you both. So you can work together in the easiest way, right? How amazing would that feel? How many of you are getting this? Yes, I am seeing so much excitement in the comments right now. It is happening over there. That is fantastic. I'm so excited. Okay, so the third thing you're going to get when you invest in the photographer's legal bundle is a confidentiality agreement, or the NDA. This includes a bunch of different clauses, including defining conditional information, disclosure of confidential information, responsibilities of the receiving party, use of confidential information, terms and termination, non-compete provision, remedies, waiver, severability, choice of law, and more. Okay, so this is perfect when you are going to share confidential business information like trade secrets, or you're sharing client information, you're creating a business partnership, if you're going to take over for a different photography business, if you're collaborating on a joint venture, maybe you want to sell your business, if you want to validate a product idea like a preset and you're talking to other photographers and you don't want them to steal your idea. Or you're going, again, to take over another business, okay? So that's when you use an NDA. So when you invest in the photographer's legal bundle, you are going to get the photography agreement for a total value of $1,500, independent contractor agreement, which is valued at $1,750, a confidentiality agreement, which is valued at $1,250, for a total value of $4,500. Now, as you're growing, as you're bringing in clients left and right, you're hiring other photographers and assistants, and you're likely maybe ready to make a new product, right? Maybe you're ready for a new structure to your packaging. Maybe you're creating a monthly membership, or you are going to take over another photography business. Maybe you want to validate your product idea with some potential customers or other photographers, but you really want to make sure that your information, your ideas are protected, and that what you discuss is safe. So your information, your ideas, the information about your business, like your financials or your marketing strategy, that is all confidential when you use an NDA. So you can be protected, your ideas can be protected, and your business can be protected. How many of you love that? Doesn't that sound absolutely fantastic? Okay, great. Okay. All right. I know I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to fly through this. The fourth legal template that you're going to get when you invest in the entrepreneur's photography legal bundle is the privacy policy. Now, the privacy policy is a legal requirement for your website. It's one of the 3 legal pages that you're required to have. And it's got information like the clauses on types of personal information you collect, how the information is collected and used, a cookies clause, clauses that apply to personal information for children, Clauses about third-party access to information, communication clauses, data retention clauses, changes to the privacy policy if you ever want to change anything. What happens if there's a dispute? So a dispute resolution. And so the reason why you want to have that is that the GDPR, or the General Data Regulation, Protection Regulation, and the CCPA, or the California Consumer Privacy Act, there are these guidelines that are all about processing and collecting information on websites. So if you get any traffic to your website from the EU countries or California, you basically have to have a GDPR and CCPA compliant privacy policy. So even if you're in the US, for example, and you have subscribers from the EU, you're subject to GDPR. And those privacy policies really outline the rights that are offered to your website visitors. Now, there are some major consequences if you do not have a privacy policy. The fines for non-compliance with the GDPR could be up to 20 million euros, or 4% of your annual revenue turnover. And if you're in violation of the CCPA, any business or service provider that violates it could be fined up to $2,500 for each violation, or $7,500 for each intentional violation, which is just insane. So if you have 10 people come to your website and you don't have your privacy policy and they are in California, guess how much you're going to be paying? A lot of money. That is right. Okay, so what you're going to get, when you invest in the photographer legal bundle, you're going to get the photography agreement, which is worth $1,500. You're going to get the independent contractor agreement, which is $1,750. You're going to get the confidentiality agreement, which is the NDA, which is worth $1,250. You're also going to get the privacy policy, which can be upwards of $3,000 for a total value of $7,500. Does that sound good? Okay, fantastic. So I want you to take a second to meet Billie Alice. She is down in Florida with her husband and young son. She just started her own magazine. She has had absolutely incredible success with it, and I'm so excited for her. So how many of you want to be like her, where you feel completely covered in your photography business and where all of your clients feel totally at ease knowing what's covered in the agreement? Who loves easy things here? Because that is what we are all about. We're all about taking the confusing and complicated legal aspects and breaking them down for you so you don't have to stress, so you don't have to be worried, and so you can go do what you do best. Are you getting this? I love that she was saying she felt so confident being covered in her business, and that her clients all felt really at ease understanding what the agreement covered. I just love that. Thank you, Billie Alice. That is so nice. Okay, so the next thing you're going to get when you invest in the photographer's legal bundle is the terms and conditions. It goes over everything like governing law, arbitration, indemnification or limitation of liability, code of conduct, use of content, warranties, severability, waiver, integration, assignment, headings and captions, remedies in case of breach, payment terms, clear description of products, and refund policies. Okay, so that is what you are getting when you get the photographer's legal bundle. This is one of the required legal pages on your website. It's the second of 3 legal pages that you need to have on your website. And the terms and conditions are really all about helping you. They're about protecting you in your online world, in your online space. So if you have someone coming into your comments and heckling you every day on your website, you can actually have the right to terminate their use of your website if you have these terms and conditions. So some of the other things that they help you with are refunds, putting any legal disputes in your home court. They tell people what their remedies are if a dispute arises. It talks about accuracy of information, third-party leaks, termination of someone's use of your website or products. Okay, so here's what you're going to get when you invest in the photographer bundle. For a total, you're going to get the photography agreement worth $1,500. You're going to get the independent contractor agreement with $1,750. You're going to get the confidentiality agreement worth $1,250. You're going to get the privacy policy worth $3,000. You're going to get the terms and conditions worth $2,500. That is a total value of $10,000. Okay, so the next thing you're going to get is the disclaimers and disclosures template. This is the third of the legal pages that you need to have on your website to make sure that your online business is protected. Okay, so this goes over things like health, legal, views expressed that they're your own opinion. It goes over any potentially offensive content. It goes over tax advice. Oops. Fair use disclaimer and affiliates. So if you have any affiliates, if people are selling your photos, if you have any sponsors, you need to have the disclaimers and disclosures on your website. So again, it's one of the legal pages that you are required to have in place on your website. It's legally required by the FTC, the Federal Trade, and it was crazy because just recently, not more than 90 influencers on Instagram were actually audited and sent letters of non-compliance by the FTC for failing to follow the disclosure rules. Now, when you have these in place, they really ensure that you're being transparent and honest with your audience. So it discloses if you have sponsors, if you're an affiliate, it discloses if you have received any free products, like if a company was sending you a new camera or new lights, or they gave you a special discount in exchange for a review. It's also required if you use any email marketing because you need to disclose how you're using their information. Okay, so what you're going to get is you're going to get the photography agreement worth $1,500. You're going to get the independent contract agreement worth $1,750. You're going to get the confidentiality agreement or the NDA worth $1,250. You're going to get the privacy policy worth $3,000. You're going to get the terms and conditions worth $2,500. And you're going to get the disclaimer template worth $1,500 for a total value of $11,500. Now that is absolutely amazing. Now I want to talk about Jeremy really quick. He is a business owner here in Colorado, and I am so excited for him. He came to us totally panicked, totally afraid, because you all know that the legal side of running your own business can be so intimidating. But with the easy autofill templates that Steve made, it really made it easy for him to get these 3 legal pages up on his website super fast. I'm talking within 10 to 30 minutes. So basically, faster than you could have watched this webinar, you could have been protected. So basically, as fast as you can type in the name of your business, right? And bam, you are protected. So how many of you want to be like Jeremy, where you can really let go of these worries about how the laws can affect your business and your bottom line? Yes? Okay, so many of you are loving this. This is absolutely amazing. Kaylee is again saying, shut up and take my money. I love it. I love the enthusiasm. But hold on, I'm not done. I am not done yet, okay? I got some amazing bonuses for you. So I am going to include 2 bonuses just for you guys. The first is the amendment to the prior agreement. Now, this clause is perfect for when you're ready to make a change to the contract if it's already been signed. Maybe you're like some of the people I've been talking about today who were asked to add on additional services, and you need to talk about the extra deliverables and the extra costs, the due dates, stuff like that. So when you have this clause in your contract, you're able to make any of the necessary changes as long as both parties agree to it. How amazing is that? Absolutely incredible. Plus, we're also going to include a collection letter template, and that is also drafted by Steve and reviewed by other licensed attorneys, because we've all been there, unfortunately, right? Remember these 2? Remember Avril and Anna, who were talking about these clients who essentially didn't want to pay. They were stressed out. They were crying. They were wondering if they were going to get paid at all. They were wondering if they were going to have to take it to small claims court, if they're going to have to get an attorney, if they're going to have to take it to trial and have it take basically 3 to 6 months or longer to get it settled. Super stressful, right? But if they had just used the collection letter template, it could de-escalate the problem without the drama, without the fear, without the stress. When you use a licensed attorney drafted collection letter, you know that the other party is really going to understand the seriousness of the situation. Plus, you come across cool as a cucumber, the ultimate professional who is prepared and ready for the situation if it ever comes up. And pretty much every online business owner I know, whether it's a freelancer, a writer, a photographer, whatever, they have all had situations like this where they were really struggling to get their client to pay for the services that were often already rendered, right? And that's when you use this collection letter. So, how much is it worth to you to take away all of that stress? Wouldn't that peace of mind be absolutely amazing? Okay, so here's what you're going to get when you invest in the Entrepreneur Contracts Photographer Legal Bundle. You're going to get the photography agreement worth $1,500. You're going to get the independent contractor agreement worth $1,750. You're going to get the confidentiality agreement or the NDA worth $1,250. You're going to get the privacy policy worth $3,000. You're going to get the terms and conditions worth $2,500. You're going to get the disclaimer template worth $1,500. Remember, those three are used on your website. They protect your business online. Plus, you're also going to get the amendment to the prior agreement, which is one of the bonuses. That is worth $500. And you're going to get the collection letter template worth $997. And that is a total value of $12,997. Now, I know you know we're not going to charge you $12,000, right? But let me ask you a question. If you could protect your business, saving you time, stress, and money to get the legal structures in place for your photography business for a one-time payment of $12,000 and that you could use again and again over the lifetime of your business, that would totally make sense, right? Like it would definitely be worth it to pay $12,000 to have your business protected forever, right? Because it's potentially saving you hundreds of thousands of dollars from fines, from attorney's fees, and having to go through all the stress of hiring an attorney, going to court, all of it. And we know, we've seen it with our clients who take their cases to trial. Steve has taken many cases to trial, and it is such a stressful process for the clients, even with everything that he does to make it as easy as possible. Taking it to court is just really stressful. It can be one of the most stressful things that you could ever go through. So basically, we had two choices, right? We had a choice where we could have become a contract law firm to work one-on-one with businesses and charge the market rate for these contracts and make basically $12,000 from a package like this one from each business that hired us, which in some ways sounded great, right? Like you get to work one-on-one with clients, you get to really see them blossom. But you know what? We did not want to do that. And you know why? Well, when you think about how long it takes to create a contract, Steve could probably write one of these packages a week with a certain number of contracts each week. So he probably only would have ended up helping one business per week if he was writing all of these contracts individually for each client. No matter how many clients I could bring in through marketing, he would still only be able to do one per week. Now, if he hired other attorneys, he probably could have them write more contracts so we could do more businesses, but he didn't want to do that. You know why? He did not want to do that because he knew that the people who needed these contracts the most were the ones who could not afford the $12,000 fee, right? It's the photographers who have smaller local businesses, the photographers who are just getting started, who are hustling and working to get their business off the ground. So that is why we decided to go with the second option, which was creating legal templates that could help men and women just like you around the world, and we could really help them protect their businesses, even if they weren't able to pay those giant legal fees. And I just think back to it where, like, when I was first getting started, living paycheck to paycheck, and it was such a struggle, honestly. I was constantly worried about finding clients, about whether I was going to be able to pay my bills, about how many clients would actually sign with me, how to do my marketing, my own accounting, project management, all of these things. And sometimes I think people get there and then they have this added stress of, okay, like now I have to take care of the legal side of my business all alone too. It could be the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's why we really wanted to create these legal templates so you can keep doing what you love. You can keep bringing your unique viewpoint, capturing those beautiful moments that people really treasure for the rest of their lives. Because you know what the first thing people grab in a fire is? I mean, obviously, besides their kids and animals, of course, it's their photographs. And you all are the ones that make that happen. So we want to protect you. We want to protect you so you can keep on capturing those beautiful moments of people's lives without worrying, right? Because that's what you're in the photography business to do. And that's what it's worth to us. It's not just that we want entrepreneurs to succeed, which of course we do. We want them to have lives full of freedom, to work with amazing clients. I mean, we obviously want that for you. But we know the real value of what you do. And sometimes, unfortunately, clients don't always see that value. Sometimes even you can forget how meaningful what you do as a photographer. You help people celebrate the biggest moments of their lives, whether that's just coming into the world, like my beautiful little nephew, and they are new to the wonder of living, and you're there to take that moment, to capture that moment. Or whether you're a portrait photographer capturing seniors as they're about to move into adulthood, or capturing a couple as they embark on that journey of marriage, or families, or beautiful art, all of these things, you essentially capture the lyric moments of our lives with precise imagery. You're creating a moment that moves beyond reality. You're really offering one that is a testament to the beauty of being alive, to the bittersweetness and the gravity of temporality and impermanence. Oh my gosh, did I just get carried away there? Sorry, I let my inner poet out there for a moment. But you know, it's true. It's so true. That's why photographers are and should be so celebrated and valued. And boy, if you are not valuing your services like that, you also need to hire me as a life coach, honey, okay? No, I'm kidding. But you need to remember what you're bringing to the table. You need to remember what you're bringing to the table for your clients and why you need to protect your business. Okay. So obviously, we're not going to ask you to invest $12,000 to protect your business, even though it's definitely worth that, right? Your business is definitely worth the $12,000 of investment to protect it legally. Now, we actually typically offered this to the general public for $797, which is also an amazing deal, right? 6 contracts drafted by a licensed attorney plus 2 bonuses. That's insane. That's not even 100 each. But because you all are here with me tonight, you all are so incredibly special. And you are so absolutely amazing for staying on this training, for taking the time to learn all about the legal side of your photography business. We are going to give you a special deal. Now, this is really limited time. We can't hold this forever, even if I wish I could, but this deal is really only going to be available for a short time. So you need to, when you're ready to buy, what you need to do is you need to go to entrepreneur.com/photography bundle to purchase all of these incredible legal templates. Okay, Kaylee, why am I not surprised? Kaylee has been in the comments rocking. Kaylee is saying she just bought it. You are on fire. You are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I got so distracted. You distracted me, Kaylee. So let me tell you a story of 2 people. Right on the left, there's Lay About Lisa, and then there's Take Action Tina. And I want you to see the difference between Lisa and Tina. Now, Lisa is all stressed out. She really wants to be successful. She wants to protect her business, but she's stuck, right? She's the kind of person who knows the path to take, but ends up not deciding, ends up being really indecisive, ends up choosing to watch Netflix instead to try and escape the anxiety and fear. And guess what happens when we do nothing? You get the same results that you've already gotten, right? That's what's going on with Lisa. Not Lisa on this training. Sorry, I know there's a Lisa in the audience. I'm not talking about you. But basically, what happens when she refused to take action is she's basically cruising through life and she ends up feeling constantly anxious. She feels fear and doubt because she never really moved into her full potential. And she never took action. Again, Lisa, I'm not talking about you in the comments there, okay? Don't take it as a personal attack. It was just alliteration. I'm a literature person. That's what I do. Okay? That's why we also have Take Action Tina on the side over here, you know? So, okay. I know you want to become the person who's like, okay, Marissa, you told me that the photographer's legal bundle is going to be absolutely amazing and I want to believe it, but I know I need to take action. I've got my first 4 clients that I've used these contracts with and it's absolutely amazing. And that's what I want for you. So I want you to be a Take Action Tina. Obviously, you can get started right now by going to entrepreneurcontracts.com/photographer bundle. Okay. So basically, you are at a crossroads where you have a couple of choices. Now, the first one is to spend all of your time researching and trying to hire a small business attorney who specializes in photography. Those are pretty rare, right? You can end up spending between $12,000 and $15,000 for an attorney to write all of these individual legal documents for your business. And that's totally a legitimate option. And if you are ready to go spend that kind of money, then go ahead. I am excited for you. It's going to be great. Now, the second option is to go get a free Google document and end up worrying, spending a lot of time and stress worrying about whether it's actually going to protect you or not. You could possibly face up to really, really large fines. We're talking between $20,000 and $100,000, depending on what it is, whether you have to hire an attorney and go to court, right? Because all of these different clauses are missing from the Google document, from the free Google contract, and they essentially don't protect you. And I'm guessing if you showed up today and if you're still here on the call with me today, you know that something needs to change, right? Like you know that the first 2 options just aren't really what you need, what you want. And that these legal templates are the way of the future. We know that law is shifting. We know that it's changing into something that's more accessible and easier. And so your third option is to use the templates prepared by a licensed attorney, reviewed by several other licensed attorneys for quality. So it's super easy to protect your particular photography business, to tailor it to your particular photography business. And it's ready to use within 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how fast you can tailor it to your business, okay? That is your third option. And then we also have a 14-day guarantee. Okay, so if you sign up today, when you sign up today and you're not 100% satisfied with the contracts that you get, and you decide in 2 weeks that this isn't for you, you just send us an email and we will give you your money back. If you end up feeling like this isn't what you want, then that's totally fine. We are happy to give you your money back because we don't need it. This isn't about us. This is about you, about protecting your business, your photography business, without having to pay 5 figures to do so. Again, this isn't about us. This is about you. And just go in there and try it out. You know, if you decide in 2 weeks that it's not for you, that's totally fine. But most people go through this and it completely changes their lives. So you don't really have to make that decision today. If you think it might work for you, then it is so worth it to try it out. Don't just take my word for it. Just go try it out. Most people go through this and their lives are changed because all of that stress, all of that fear is just evaporated. So just try it out and let us know in 2 weeks. And again, don't take my word for it. Take a look at what some of the other people have been saying lately. These are all incredible people that we've been so excited to work with. This is already working for others. So the first one is Heather. She said, this was the first thing I invested in before signing my first client. Maria was saying everyone needs to have them. Yes. Lauren is saying, this is one of the first things that I sorted out. We've got one saying, this is so needed. I had no idea how much I needed to protect my business, even from the start, but now I know. I know it's so important to start with the right foundation to have the legal pages in place. I'm so happy I found these quality legal documents at such an amazing price. Yes. When you get your business up and running, so many people forget about setting up the legal side. Everyone needs templates and legal pages created by an experienced and expert lawyer. Gives so much peace of mind knowing that I'm protecting my business. I knew I needed to protect my business with a privacy policy, but I had no idea where to start. When I saw the Entrepreneur Legal Bundle, I knew I wouldn't break the bank and I could get it done fast. I knew I was getting quality documents to protect my business from potential legal disputes. Yes, honestly, legal templates have been a complete lifesaver. I wouldn't have known how to protect my business without it. But with these, I know I saved so much time, money, and stress. They're thorough and professional. Thank you. You are so welcome. And then we got, thanks for all your hard work. You guys are such an inspiration. When I first got started, I was totally burned. Attorneys and a lot of work later, I was not having it. Protect your brands, ladies. This is definitely needed. Yeah, yes, it is needed. And then everyone should have them. Okay, let's get into Q&A time. Okay, so I'm going to hop in the chat now and basically answer any questions that you might have. Okay, oh my gosh, I'm just reading through some of the comments. I'm seeing that so many people have already gotten it. I'm so excited. Tam's got it. So excited for you. Lisa is saying she's got it. She's already filled it out. Not a lay about Lisa, am I right? Okay, wow, you are absolutely amazing. That is so fast. That is so incredible. Okay, any questions? Any questions that I can answer? Okay, we've got Simon. Simon has a question about whether this is going to work for him in his area. I think you're in London, right? Okay, so yes, we have had people use these legal templates from all over the world. And even though laws are slightly different in different states and different countries, obviously, most contracts, most legal documents are about 95% of the same. So you will have to tailor like a little bit to your specific situation, but it's super easy, really easy. So yes, this will work for you in your area. Great question. Thank you, Simon. Okay, sorry, just reading through the comments here. I'm loving how excited you all are. I'm loving your energy. You guys are amazing. Wow. Okay. Okay, Janine is asking where to go to buy it. Super easy, Janine. You can either go to entrepreneurcontracts.com/photography bundle, or you can just click on the link below, on the button below, and that will take you right to it, okay? All right, Nina is asking what's included. Okay, no problem, Nina. When you sign up for the Photographer's Legal Bundle, you're going to get 6 legal contract templates, and that includes the Photographer's Agreement, the Independent Contractor Agreement, which you'll also get a confidentiality agreement, plus the 3 legal pages that you need to have on your website. And that includes the privacy policy, the terms and conditions, and the disclosures and disclaimers pages. So plus you're going to get 2 additional bonuses. You're going to get the amendment to the prior agreement clause, which you basically put into any of the other contracts to allow you to change the contracts if you want. And then you're also going to get the collection letter template, which has been drafted by Steve, drafted by a licensed attorney, so you can be sure that you always get paid by your clients no matter what. I'm looking in the clients, she's saying, okay, done. I love that. Thank you, Nina. I love seeing you take that leap to invest in yourself and really knowing and trusting yourself, knowing that you're capable of doing this. That is absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm going to share the offer again, so you can click on the link on the button below right under the video to get started today. Okay, Victoria is asking, how will I know where to put all of this business information and what I need to change? Fantastic question, Victoria. Thank you. So we have made these templates super, super easy for you to customize. Basically, when you sign up, you'll be able to download all of the templates right away. And it actually comes with video instructions where Steve walks you through how to fill out the documents step by step. So there's an autofill section where you basically only have to enter your information once, and then it is filled throughout the document wherever it needs to go. Then there are a couple of places that tend to need a little bit more information, a little bit more attention, depending on your business. That's where you really tailor it to suit you. And these are highlighted in green, again with instructions, so you know exactly what you need to put in there. So for example, in the photography agreement contract, there's a section in green about whether you want to keep the copyright for yourself or if you want to give it to your client. So if you decide you want to keep it for yourself, you essentially just delete the paragraph that gives the copyright to your client and vice versa. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's super easy. You'll be ready to roll in about 10 minutes or so, depending on how fast you can type. Okay, does that answer your question, Victoria? Yes. Okay, great. Good, great. That is fantastic. I'm seeing one more. I'm seeing one from Rachel. So Rachel has a question on, are you going to be able to use it for all of your contracts? Okay, yes, Rachel, once you purchase the photography legal bundle, you can use each contract as much as you want. It's not just a one-time use. You can use the independent contractor templates for all of your hires and the NDA for all of those same hires that you really want to protect your information. And you can use the photographer's agreement for all of your clients that you bring in. And you can use the 3 legal pages on all of your websites. So let's say you're not just a photographer, but you also have like a side hustle or something else. You can also use those 3 legal pages on your other websites. You don't have to buy it every time you need a new contract or when you make a new website. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. That is such a great question. Thank you. Jessica and Jasmine are saying thank you so much. Thank you for the information, so helpful. And of course, you are so welcome. I'm so happy to give you all of this information so you can protect your business. It's great. You are so welcome. Now, I am about to wrap it up because I am running out of time here. But basically, if you have any other questions that I have not answered, go ahead and email us at team@entrepreneurcontracts.com. We can have one of our team members answer any questions that you might have. And I am so excited. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. For those of you who've purchased, I am so excited for you all to really protect your photography business with these legal contracts. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. I know that was a lot of information, so thank you so much. And I will see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.